The Dallas Morning News now calls the former Dallas Public Library on Commerce Street home. It is the newspaper's third home in Dallas after first setting up shop on Commerce and Lamar in 1885. But the story of the Dallas Morning News and its parent company, A.H. Belo, goes back to Galveston in 1842. That's when the Galveston Daily News began. A generation later, in 1865, a Civil War veteran from North Carolina, Alfred Horatio Belo, journeyed west and found himself in Texas.
He landed in Galveston looking for a job, and he got a job as with the Galveston Daily News.
Belo joined the Galveston paper in the business department and soon became a co-owner and eventually sole owner. He named it A.H. Belo and Company. George Dealey was 15 when Colonel Belo hired him. Just a few years later, Belo sent him north to find a town where the company could start a second newspaper. The 22-year-old Dealey selected Dallas.
They started the Dallas Morning News as the first example of trained journalism as a sister newspaper.
October 1st, 1885 saw the first copy of the Dallas Morning News. Dealey served as publisher for the next 55 years. In the 1920s, the Ku Klux Klan played a powerful role in Dallas. Under Dealey's leadership, the newspaper took strong editorial stands against the KKK.
He went after them once, the next time, and the next time. It was a relentless editorial campaign against tremendous pressures.
This stance led to cancellations by subscribers and advertisers. To keep the Dallas Morning News afloat, the company sold the Galveston paper. Also in the 1920s, the company invested in a new technology, radio, thanks to G.B. Dealey's son, Walter.
Walter thought this is the way of the future. He thought this is more important than the newspaper. Walter was able to establish a radio station, WFAA, which in his view stood for working for all alike. And the tagline for the radio station was the radio voice of the Dallas Morning News.
In 1950, the company invested in another new technology, television. Not everyone in Belo leadership was eager to try it, but they bought a Dallas television station and renamed it WFAA.
The early WFAA television was, again, sort of a by the seat of your pants kind of operation.
Around this same time, the Morning News moved to its location on Young Street. To honor its longtime publisher, a quote from George Bannerman Dealey, who died in 1946, was chiseled in stone on the front of the building.
It is an enduring statement of the mission of a news-based organization that I think stands the test of time. In a certain way, we do have our mission statement etched in stone on our building. Not many people can say that. Later,
the city of Dallas would also honor Dealey, naming a plaza in his honor. It was an honor he never wanted.
He says, "Oh, no, 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 please don't let them do that. Please tell them that I'm greatly honored, but I do not want the plaza named for me." So his son called back to wrote the park department and said, "He doesn't want you to do it, but I think we should do it anyway." And so it's named for him.
Just a few years later, Dealey Plaza would become infamous as the site where President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Many criticized the Morning News for an ad that ran in the newspaper on November 22nd, 1963.
The positions the Morning News took in the 1950s and into the 1960s were hard right. There's no question about that. The perception of the newspaper, when combined with the publication of that advertisement on November 22nd, was that somehow we had conspired to do that we had consciously published this ad, and that it reflected the views of the newspaper, and even more regrettably, the views of the city of Dallas. Neither of those things is right.
A.H. Belo became a public company in 1981. The decision allowed the company to expand its television holdings, making what was in 1983 the biggest purchase ever of a television group, $600 million. Also, during the 1980s, a newspaper war with the Dallas Times-Herald became fierce.
It was a very intense competitive environment. From my standpoint, we had the advantage because we had not only the journalistic legacy, but we had the brand presence, the distinction of the Dallas Morning News, and we had the morning publication cycle, which was becoming increasingly important as Americans' habits changed, moving away from a second newspaper or a primary newspaper in the evening to a morning newspaper.
The war, won by Belo, resulted in a major staff expansion at the Morning News and led to the first of the newspaper's 9 Pulitzer Prizes.
I think for the consumer, it just says this is a very excellent newsroom capable of doing the very best work at any given time, and day in and day out is doing regularly great journalism.
In the late 90s, Belo made a $1 billion-plus purchase of 10 television stations and the Providence Journal and Riverside Press newspapers. Belo Television became the 10th largest and one of the most honored broadcast groups in the country, winning multiple DuPont Columbia batons and Peabody Awards, the highest honors in broadcast journalism.
I don't believe that any local television news company throughout the United States could claim to be any better than Belo was across the board. I don't think you'd find anybody more awarded than the stations that Belo owned and operated.
The advent of the internet and free online advertising took a large piece of revenue from newspapers across the country, including those owned by Belo. In 2008, the company split. Television stations remained part of Belo and the newspapers part of A.H. Belo.
Given the financial markets, the public markets at that time, we could create significant value for our shareholders by spinning off the newspaper business, retaining the television business in Belo Corp, and then letting each of those companies fulfill their respective potentials.
4 years later, Belo sold its television stations to Gannett. A.H. Belo sold the Providence and Riverside newspapers, and in late 2017 sold the Denton Record Chronicle. A.H. Belo diversified by adding marketing companies to help its bottom line.
We have built companies like Speakeasy and Crowdsource, and we bought companies like Distribuon and Vertical Nerve and Marketing FX, and we're going to continue to build out that marketing solutions sort of ecosystem so that that is really a growth engine for the whole company. The reason that we can start a new company, the reason that in some cases we've been able to attract good companies to want to become part of us is because the brand of the Dallas Morning News is so strong still today.
The Dallas Morning News moved to its current location in December 2017. It was the perfect choice. The new building's original architect, George Dahl, was the same one who designed our home on Young Street. And like our former home, our mission statement is proudly displayed for all to see. The new building allows for better collaboration and communication among our people. The building also made our transition to a digital-first newsroom much easier.
The technology is so great for us. We have conference room technology that works so we can hear conference calls in other places really well. We have Jamboards where we can draft ideas and share them with people in other parts of the building or other places in the company or other places in the world. So it's just much more fitting for an organization that's turned to digital as its first priority.
In March 2018, Grant Moise became the 8th publisher of the Dallas Morning News. He replaces Jim Maroney, who continues as board chairman, president, and chief executive of A.H. Belo Corporation. For 175 years, the mission has remained constant, a commitment to quality journalism and serving the community.
I'm very proud to know that I get up in the morning and run an organization that has a higher calling than just selling more widgets for more money, that it's trying to do good every single day.
This company is the oldest continuously operated business in Texas. That's saying something. It's something to be proud of.